All right. So I want to say, ETM Hotep, welcome to the Sesh mdw-ntr YouTube channel. And this is your brother Wujawu Meneb Idi Ma'at. And again, welcome. Appreciate anyone who's tuned in. I usually try to talk for a while, buy some time to see if those who are notified can, tune in. Tonight's discussion, today's Friday. We normally do a Freestyle Friday. Well, we're trying to do something consistent on Fridays again. In the past, we've done Freestyle Fridays, and we were very consistent for a good stretch of time, pretty much about a year. We did that straight. And so we want to get something consistent going on Fridays. So Fridays, it may be Freestyle Friday. It may just be open discussion or a presentation on a specific topic. So tonight, I just wanted to keep it open and allow those of you in the chat to chime in, bring up a topic to discuss. And that way we don't, I don't have to initiate, or we don't have to initiate the topic this time. So I'm going to say up front, again, welcome ETM Hotep. And I appreciate those of you who are tuned in. And those of you who'll be watching this as an archive video. But I want to leave the topic up to you all. So, I can see the chat. So I'll be monitoring the chat. And I posted a link also for anyone who's daring enough to come on the panel and let your voice be heard. And I say daring enough because for some reason, I don't know if it's me. I doubt if it's me, but maybe, I don't know what it is, but I post a link, and for some reason people shy away from coming in on the panel. Mind you, you don't have to have your video camera on, as long as you have a microphone and headsets, or you can hear everybody else, then that's fine. So I'm not sure if that's it. People may think, you have to have a webcam or whatever the case is, but that's not the case. All right. So there's no need for people to be scared. This is not like a hot seat. You're not going to be put in a hot seat. So I posted the link. I'll now post it again. I'll post it again right now for those to come on in. All right, there's the link again. All you have to do is hit the link. The meeting ID is there. The password is there. And if you don't have the Zoom app, you'll be prompted to download it. It's free. You don't have to worry about, adware or anything like that. It's a legitimate professional app. You could download it free to your phone, to your tablet, or to your computer. So go ahead and do that and come on and chime in. Okay, but alternatively, I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So I'm going to allow you all to choose a topic or ask questions. All right, so that's why I left it open. So Friday open panel, open discussion panel. All right, so let me say ETM Hotep. I see we have brother son Chris. So I don't know if you want to let your voice be heard real quick. Let people know you're here.
ETM Hotep. This is brother Chris.
All right. And so, like I said, I'm going to be monitoring the chat, and I don't see any topics flying around or questions flying around just yet. So I'll be monitoring those. But if anybody comes on the panel, if you have a topic that you want to bring up, discuss, something that you've seen, something that you may have a question about, whether you've seen it on social media, a book you're reading, movie you've seen, let's have at it. So the floor is open. All right. I always get accused of being long-winded, and I've gotten the title of MC Iron Lung and everything. But sometimes, I do that because no one else kind of pushes the conversation forward. So if you leave it up to me, you best believe I'll have you all here till 5 in the morning. All right. So it's open. The chosen few, Hotep Wujao, do you answer questions about Egyptian religion? If I have the answer, sure, definitely. if I don't know the answer, I will definitely say so, and then maybe we could work together and find an answer, or I can get back to you on an answer. But yeah, everything's fair game. All right, as long as I can connect it to Kemet or ancient Egypt, we're not gonna have a discussion about how to change your brake pads on your car or anything like that. So, anything that can be related to ancient Egypt or Kemet, is pretty much fair game. All right, I mean, like I said, it's an open discussion. It's not a test, not a debate, not a, you know, any of that kind of stuff. Have you seen the new episode of Star Talk? No, I haven't. Well, what's the title of it? What's the title? What's the title? Because I've seen so many, and sometimes they have a different series name. I try to keep up with those. Neil deGrasse Tyson is pretty much one of my favorite, probably my favorite science guy. I know Bill Nye has the title Bill Nye the Science Guy, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is definitely a person. See, Neil deGrasse Tyson is, to me, he's the epitome of a person who is a specialist in his field of expertise, but he also has the science of teaching down, because he can convey the rigidness, the rigor, and the strictness of astrophysics, and he can convey it in a way where a layperson can understand it. And when you can do that, then you definitely pretty much mastered the art of teaching and explaining things. And I think that he is definitely one of those people. And he adds humor in it. He brings, like I said, that rigid, meticulous, even boring things to the lay people in a very fun way. So it's really, really good. So I always give him props for that. Neil deGrasse, and he's not the only one, but Neil deGrasse is probably my favorite. So yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen that episode. So let's see. Oh, vaccines. Okay, no, I haven't seen that one. I saw it. I saw it being available, but I haven't watched it. Okay, so no, I haven't watched that one, but that is definitely in my playlist to watch. All right, so but I haven't seen that one yet. Now, okay, so we have brother son Kadeem. So I don't know if you want to give a shout out to the chat. Let everyone know that you're here. I'm gonna post a link again. I'm gonna post a link periodically, so people who are just jumping in the chat, you'll see the link and you can come on in. This is open. Of course, we are mature. We are adults. None of that childish stuff. I mean, I will kick you in a minute. All right, my tolerance for immaturity is like -0. All right, because this is I want to push the conversations, make them interesting, talk about some things so people can learn and take away something. So we don't really have time for any shenanigans. All right, so I'm gonna post a link. Everyone is welcome to come into the panel if you want to speak verbally, or you can type in your questions or comments in the chat, and I'm monitoring them, but I'm going down slowly so I don't miss anything. And if you're on the panel, as I'm talking, if you have a topic bring up, or you want to chime in on a question that I read or that you read in the chat, then by all means go ahead. Feel free to cut me off. All right. So see, we have Sunshine in the building. So I don't know if you want to let everyone know that you're here.
ATM Hotel, Rennie Sean. Welcome in peace, my name is Sean. I look forward to the discussion. Just chime in. We'll pop on.
All right. So what I forgot to do is to ask if everybody can hear me clearly, but I'm gonna assume that you can. But if someone, okay, well, not in here, but in the chat as far as on YouTube. So if someone could let me know on YouTube if we're loud and clear. In the meantime, we're gonna keep on talking. So let me scroll on down. Soul L asks your thoughts on the Saisset Society. Now I guess maybe everyone on the panel right now, you can offer your response to this too. But for me, I'll start it off. For me, the Saisset Society is I'm very familiar with it. You know, it's a for those who don't know, Saisset Society is an organization started by Ra and Nubia, and overall, without being all long with it, overall, I think that Ra and Nubia and the organization and the society is on to a lot of good things, and I think they're somewhat misunderstood by people who don't take the time to look into what he wrote in terms of his books. He has a series of books called the Medew-ntr volumes, the Medew-ntr series, and I believe he has volumes 1 through 7, possibly 8 now, but I know it's 7. And some people mistook those books as if he was trying to teach the language because of the title of that series, Medew-ntr. And because the language is called, the hieroglyphs themselves are called Sesh Netcher, people kind of misinterpret that, and they may have bought the book or looked forward to learning the language and found that that's not the case. And it may have turned some people off in it. And some other things. So, what I find is that there are a few people who misunderstand or mischaracterize the organization and Ra and Nubia Amen's works. And, I've dealt with people on social media about that, quite a bit. Now, so I think that one thing, they have a lot of good components about the organization and their focus as far as health. As far as psychology, they're heavily into the psychological aspects of what people will call African spirituality, with a primary focus in Kemet. He also points out and focuses on Chinese systems such as the I Ching and the Qigong, and he also deals with the Indus Valley with the mantras and things like that. So people confuse that, those as if those elements are ancient Egyptian or whatnot, but that's not something that he mixes together and tries to pass off as one system being in ancient Egypt. And that's something that he was asked specifically about, and he was asked, I'm paraphrasing because it was a long while ago. He was asked about mixing those systems, and his response was that you shouldn't. You should respect them and give credit to where to whom and where it belongs, and if it works, utilize them, but you don't have to utilize them with the sense of mixing them together. So I guess in a nutshell, I think the Saisset societies are doing, as an organization, they do great work, do great things. One thing that I do wish that they did that they don't is focus on the Egyptian language. I think that's a huge, huge handicap and a mistake in the bigger picture of things. So, because, as you all should know from me, that the Egyptian language is everything. In order to understand Egypt, you have to do it by way of its language. So without a focus on learning the language to be able to probe the text and learn from it, you have to ask, if you can't survey the text, then where are you getting your information from? Think about it. If everything about Egypt is saved in its material artifacts that we can see, that are tangible, or in its literature, in the plethora of different texts, papyri, and so on and so forth, and there's written in the Egyptian language using the Egyptian script, pictorial script called hieroglyphics by most people. And if you can't pierce that, then where are you getting your information from? And so I say that for any organization. So it's not just a Saisset society, but that's one of my things that's one of my strikes against them, is that they don't have a focus in learning the language. And of course that may change in the future, or it may have changed now, that I may not know. But that's my take on it. Unless there was something specific, but anyway, somebody on the panel, y'all may want to give y'all thoughts on that. No?
I'm trying to find this post that was on Facebook regarding ancient Kemet. I wanted to kind of like get into it because it was some people that was putting more claims on Kemet than in all actuality. But this was a new one. This wasn't one of those same old. But I'm trying to find it now. When I do, I'll bring it up.
Okay, no problem. All right, so I'm gonna keep going down the line. I want to keep it going. So again, for those who are just tuning in, tonight is an open discussion, open panel, open discussion. Everything is fair game as long as it can relate to Kemet. Like I said, we're not going to discuss on anything about how you change your brake pads on your car or anything like that. We want to keep it relatable to ancient Egypt or Kemet. And so you can type in the chat a question, comment, or you can come on the panel. I prefer come on the panel so we can greet each other and hear your words, and we can have a discussion. But I'm monitoring the chat as well, so I'm going down the list in the chat of everybody's comments. And again, dua for those who are tuned in. It's Friday night. We want to do something consistent on Fridays as we used to before. We used to have Freestyle Fridays, and we've done it so much we've kind of exhausted it. So we want to get that going again, every Friday, something consistent. But so it may not be Freestyle Friday per se, but it may be open discussions, maybe a presentation or what have you. But we want to keep something going each Friday. All right, so I'm going to keep going down. So let's see. Okay, Anpu Ma'at Ra, can you go over the numbers in Medew Netcher? Sure. For those who, let me say them, and then maybe we can spell them out. All right. So the numbers are from 1 to 10. I mean, of course, I'm sure you don't expect me to just keep on reading numbers to infinity. So I'll just do 1 to 10. It's Wa, Sin, Komp, Fedu, Diu, Sisu, Safek, Chemnu, Peseju, Medew. That's 1 through 10. Wa is 1, Sin, Son is 2, Kompt is 3, Fedu, 4. See, I have to say them fast because even when I say them real slow, it's like I get them out of order. Wa, Senu, Kompt, Fedu, Diu is 5. All right. Sisu, 6, Safek, 7, Chemnu, 8, Pesej or Peseju is 9, and Med or Mej or Medew is 10. All right, so that's 1 through 10. But since that was brought up, what you should find interesting is that the number 2 is the number Sin or Senu. Some people may pronounce it Son, different pronunciations, but Sin, and it means a double or 2. Now that's also the word that is it's also a word for companion. Sinenu, which is the word for companion, like my friend, a companion. And it's also the word for a sibling. Sin is the word for sibling. It's also the word for brother. Sinet, which is the feminine form of it, is the word for sister. And so I explained this before that, language represents the psychological disposition of a group of people that speak that particular language, or what we call a speech community. And so it's a reflection of the mind and how they perceive the world, their worldview, and the choices that they make is based on it. The whole nine, behavior, everything. And so if you think about it, the word sin is a word for brother or sister in the feminine form. So if the word means two or a double, then what that's saying is that they see a brother as another one, a double of themselves. So if I say sin or Sini, my brother, Sinuk, your brother, or Sinet E, my sister, then I'm saying that I see myself in you, or you are my double. And if that is fully embraced by the mind, then the behavioral patterns will reflect it. Okay? And so I'm going to treat you a certain way if I see you as me, or as my double, or as my second. All right? Now, our English word brother and our English word sister, they don't have that semantic chain coming from the number two. Whereas in Ra and Kemet, which is the name of the language of ancient Egypt or Kemet, that it has that semantic chain where we're talking about another one, or a second, or a double, or two. And then I'm calling that two my brother or my sister. You see? So we would treat people a little different just based on that psychology right there. But anyway, I thought that would be interesting to share. But anyway, that's the numbers from 1 through 10. Wa, Sanu, Komfidu, Diu, Sisu, Safek, Chimenu, Peseju, Medew. All right, 1 through 10. And if you want to know more about the numbers and everything, we have more in the textbook where we go over it in the beginner's textbook. And so if you have taken a class with anybody else, or you take a class with us, you'll definitely learn more about that. All right. And speaking of class, let me say this before we go for any further. It's not too late to get into the beginners study group that just started. Here's the flyer for it. We really just had one session so far, one live session where we went over the introduction in the textbook and chapter 1. But it's not too late, because the way that this study course is designed is that you go at your own pace. And our 2-hour live sessions is really to discuss in a sequential order each chapter, one chapter after the other. But we take questions and we have discussions about anything that you may be having trouble with or confused about. And so you can go and learn at your own pace and take the quizzes at the end of each chapter at your own pace. But our live sessions they move along in a sequential order. So it's not too late to join into the class group. And so as you see on the flyer on the screen at the bottom, sableuniversity.com. So if you're interested, the study is 12 weeks in terms of our live sessions. We have 12 2-hour live sessions once a week. So it's 12 weeks. And the study course is only $100 if you have the beginner's textbook, and it's $130 if you don't. And if you don't, and you pay the $130, you'll get your book within 2 to 3 days. And you just jump in on our sessions, and you'll get all the help from fellow students and from teachers. Right now, I'm spearheading the teaching of the beginner's level and the grammar level, which will be made public later in the beginning of this year, coming next year. All right. Okay, so that's that. Sean, do you find it yet? Nope. All right, so I'm gonna keep going down the line of the questions. Let's see. Can you go? Okay, I read that one. Jason Coley, how do I retake the beginner's Netcher course again? It's not allowing me to redo the course. Okay, Jason, if you're on Facebook, inbox me. Okay, inbox me, on Facebook. And I have the same name on Facebook, Wujao. All right. And I will make sure, and I say that because I want to make sure that you get in. I can follow up. But, to answer you right now, well, first I need to know, what is it saying? What are you getting an error? What is the problem? I need more specifics from you. All right. And say peace to everybody. Okay, the Chosen Few says, I know there are more than one creation story in Kemet. Which creation story was most widely believed for the longest period of time? All right, that's a good question. Now, here's what we have to be careful. And there's scholars that will, that have, they express the same sentiment now, which is different than the earlier sentiments in early Egyptology, and even, in books in between. A lot of people viewed the quote unquote creation stories in Kemet as competing stories that may or may not even contradict one another, and so on. But that sentiment has changed now, that they're not stories that are in competition or even standing in contradistinction from each other. They're complementary, and it depends on the focus of the issue of the myth, because you have to understand these quote unquote creation stories are figurative narratives that are put together in what we call myths, because that's what a myth is. It's not, people look at the word myth as as fake, or they use myth synonymous with pseudo, or it's fake, it's fiction, but it's a figurative expression. It's a collection of figurative expressions compiled into a narrative, and so they're complementary. So, and I say that because in the question, which story was mostly widely believed for the longest period of time, there are ones that are more prominent, depending on when they were established. So you have what they call the Heliopolitan creation story. That's from Heliopolis. You have the one that comes from the city of 8. And notice when I gave you the numbers, number 8, Chemnu is also the word for 8. It's the number 8, and it's the city of 8, what they call Hermopolis. And the major deity there will be Jehudi, actually. And then you have the 8. You have those 8, what the Greeks call Ogdods. And so you have the 9. Then you have the 8. 9 being the Heliopolis story. You have the 8 in the Hermopolitan story. Then you have others that involve Khnum and some others elsewhere. And so the popular one that people talked about, and still, as far as scholarship as well, would be the one involving Atum, Ra, and the 9. All right. So, but I want to just point out that, we no longer should see them as competing stories, that they're complements. All right. And, that's a whole conversation in of itself. Also, what I want to point out, though, when we talk about creation, a lot of us will deal with that subject coming from the Abrahamic belief systems, view or point of view, where creation is an event that took place in the past, and it's a single point in time that some things were done, and then that's it. Instead of looking at it as an infinite and continual process. On top of that, we also tend to view creation as being performed by something, and that something is separate from the event itself. So in other words, in the Abrahamic belief system, they say that God creates or created everything, but yet God is not a part of the creation itself. God is separate. God sits in heaven somewhere, and then his creation is outside of him. And then he interferes and deals with the affairs of the things that he created from time to time, but he's separate from the creation. And that's completely different and opposite of a lot of indigenous communities on the continent of Africa and how they view, where God is creation itself, or God and creation is one and the same, and God does not sit outside of creation at all. So it's a complete different paradigm shift, and so we have to understand that when we're reading these texts also. All right, so I'm just pointing these things out. Maybe it'll help you, in reading, researching, and looking for you on the panel. I can't see the panel. Am I still broadcasting? I see this red. I'm sorry, I see a red. We'll make sure that everything's all right. Y'all can still hear me in here, right? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right. So listen, I'm do I have to? I'm at the calling. I'm gonna call some names and put some people on the spot. Call some names because I like interaction. I don't want to carry the weight of the conversation. Totally. So let me go down the list. I'm gonna go down the list a few more. The chosen few. Now hopefully I answered enough of your question, but that is a full discussion where we can get into the creation stories, so-called creation stories. And I don't know. It looks like the what do you call it? Streaming is having an issue. All right, we're gonna keep it going though. We're gonna keep going until it tells me it cuts us off or something. All right, so let's keep on going. What is the esoteric symbolism of the Ankh? All right, the esoteric symbolism of the Ankh. That is a good question, but I want to ask you now. I know there's a delay, and you asked it. I'm going in order. You asked it like a while back, but I want to know from you, what do you consider as esoteric? Period. What is esoteric? Period. All right, and I asked that not to avoid the question or anything like that, but I get into these conversations a lot, and a lot of people are interested in the esoteric, in that which is like hidden within, and things like that. So I just wanted to know, what is esoteric to you first, and so I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna see if you elaborate on that. What is the oldest written language and civilization, and what are your sources? This comes from Will Mobley. All right, Will Mobley, I suggest that you get a book called Visible Language. It's available on Amazon. It's called Visible Language. And in that book, it was done in 2015. They have some good up-to-date information when it comes to writing systems and their ages and what's considered the oldest, and so on and so forth. All right. There's been a long-standing debate between Sumerian writing and Egyptian writing, which one is older. People go back and forth. Egypt's is older, and some people say Sumerian is older. In terms of the attested record, what we have attestations for, even in that book, they give it to ancient Egypt. All right. Ancient Egypt. Sesh Netcher, or what they call hieroglyphic. And as far as a source that you can do further reading on, it's a book called Visible Language. All right. So hopefully that will help you out. Now, in addition to that, what everyone is going to need to understand is what is considered a writing system, what a writing system is. And we elaborate on what a writing system is in our book. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams. That's the title of our book. We wrote that book in, I think, 2016, 17, when that debate was supposed to happen about whether or not the hieroglyphs had been deciphered. And so we wrote that in response to Professor Walter Williams' claims that it wasn't. And we went point for point. Each one of his points, we addressed them one by one. And in the book, we educate everyone. It's written in two parts, part 1 and 2 in the same book. Part 1, we educate everyone on the nature and function of the writing system, the hieroglyph writing system, how it works and everything. Then part 2, we actually go through the rebuttal. And in there, we explain what a writing system is. And so we had to do that because people confused pictographs for writing systems. So when we have these conversations, people will say, well, hey, 12,000 years ago, there's, some cave art. There's some pictures in the cave art, some pictures of some cattle and some people hunting and hunting scenes and so on and so forth. What about that? Well, that's not writing. All right. And there's a reason why that's not writing. And so we go into the details in that book. All right. So the oldest writing system is considered Sesh Netcher. All right. Writing system. A writing system is the visual representation of speech. All right. Whether visual characters are created from an inspiration of actual objects in nature or abstract, resemble anything in nature. They don't resemble anything. So we don't look at them as pictorial or anything of that nature, but there are writing systems that started off where their characters were inspired by actual objects in their environment. And that's what the hieroglyphs are. Everybody's listening in, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the chat. If you all can confirm that you all can still hear me, I would appreciate it. Oh, it's buffering. All right, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Y'all, I know you all know that Google and YouTube, they are definitely changing up a lot of things. By the end of this year, they're changing up the whole, they took Google Hangout away, and now they're changing up how you can even go live. All right. But, yeah, they really don't like this buffering. Like for things to be nice and smooth. If it gets too bad, I'll restart the broadcast. All right.
Yeah, well, I think it's not just your channel. It's like it's been lagging on the other stuff, other videos too.
Okay.
They've been going all day today.
All right. Well, hopefully we can keep it moving. All right. So so I just want to say that about writing systems, though. We have to understand what a writing system is. So hopefully that gave some insight on that question. And again, I'll name a book. One is ours. Our book. Matter of fact, do I have a picture of it? Should have a picture of it. I guess if any of the moderators are in there, you can post a link to our book. Has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? A rebuttal to Professor Walter Williams. In that book, we go over that. But the book I mentioned was Visible Language. All right. because it talks about, Sumerian language, Akkadian, cuneiform, the various different languages that use cuneiform script, Sumerian script, Egyptian script, linear B, linear A, all these other things. All right, so check that book out. Let's see what else. Let's keep on going down. Let's go down. Okay, loud and clear, loud and clear. Okay, Robert Rand said, yes, back in the days around 92, 93, I was attending a Saisset in Brooklyn. Okay, nice. Okay, Sarah Jahudi, does the Indus Kush Valley or location have anything to do with Kemet or Kush? The ancient Egyptians called, now this is another thing. The ancient Egyptians called their neighbors to the south the kingdom of the people who were south of them, Kash. All right, the territory between Kash.
Does the Indus Kush Valley?
Okay, I think so. Yeah, whoever came in, you're gonna have to mute your. You could turn your you have to mute your YouTube because I'm hearing a double. I'm hearing a double. Okay. All right. Appreciate it. All right. Let's see. Oh, Kash. The Egyptians called Kush Kash. All right. And the territory in between Kash and Egypt was called Ta-Nehisi. Now, whether or not there is have anything to do with Kemet or Kush, a lot of people make that correlation because of the name, and then they say, blacks, they use the flat black, the skin color methods and things, and say, okay, people from India were really Kushites who migrated over there, and that's why you see some of the similarities, and they want to make that connection to then begin to talk about Kundalini, the chakras, and some other things that a lot of people like to talk about today in a mixture to justify utilizing them, those systems, or practicing those things. And so that's really unnecessary and not needed. To determine the connection between the two would be you would have to do a couple of things. One, linguistics, and cultural artifacts, cultural nuances, things that are marked or markers within the culture, not just because the name Kush or Kash and things like that. All right. So hopefully that they're similar civilizations, because like Egypt, India was protected by natural borders. They had a natural border of the sea called the Indian Ocean now. They had mountains and desert that surrounded their civilization, which allowed them to mature their culture without the influence from outsiders as much, as if they didn't have these natural borders and barriers. And the same thing with Kemet. Kemet had natural borders and barriers. They had the Red Sea, they had the Mediterranean Sea, they had the desert and mountains, and in the south they had the cataracts along the river. All right, so that kind of impeded the free-for-all invasions and things where they could be disrupted much more easier. All right, so they had time to definitely cultivate their culture. All right, so one of the biggest clues, like I said again, though, language. If you were a historical comparatist, or if you utilize the tools of historical comparative linguistics, and you're able to connect Sanskrit or the Indian language to the Egyptian language in any consistent and uniform ways and things like that, then you'll be on to something. Then if you can establish them as cognate languages, closely related, genetically closely related languages, then you could start to proceed and make inferences and test those inferences in terms of a proto-culture from which both of them may have come out of. All right, so that's something that you along the lines of something you would have to do to show that. All right. Let's see. Okay, Solel. Okay, that was a Saisset question. Let's see. Okay, Adrian Padilla or Padilla. Have you ever heard of a book named The Tears of Ra by Jean Christie? If so, what is your take on it? It's about honey, beekeeping, and some other things. Yes, I've heard of it, but I haven't read it and studied it. So I don't like to make I don't like to give commentary on things that I haven't read fully and did the knowledge on. All right, that I see other people do that, and I speak out against that. People want to make judgments on books that they haven't read and things like that. So no, but I have heard of it, and the title sticks out because the Tears of Ra is an actual epithet or the actual definition of what the ancient Egyptians called themselves, which is the Remech. All right. The ancient Egyptians, remember, so the ancient Egyptians called themselves the Remech, and they got that name in connection to their cosmology or cosmogonical texts, where human beings come forth from the tears of Ra, when Ra cries, and he was known as the deity Remi, which is what the word cry means, Rem, which is to tear up or to cry. Or as a noun, the tears themselves. And so the Egyptians saw themselves as the emanations of Ra by way of his tears. So the tears of Ra is speaking about the Egyptians themselves. Okay, so the name of that book, that title sticks out. So I don't forget that. That's how I know. I mean, I've definitely heard of it, but I haven't had a chance to do the knowledge on that. But anybody on the panel, if, because I'm doing all the talking now, y'all can step in and respond to some of these things I'm reading, the questions that I'm reading. All right, feel free. Feel free.
Peace, Hotep.
Hotep.
I don't really got. I'm really here to ask some questions. So much so as have have something to contribute as an expert. So my question is, let's see. Okay, so you continuously hear like people like Zion say that the word Nubia was a bad word. Like it's something. It's not a word that we should use because it was a word that the Kemites used to degrade other Africans. Now, going back to the situation with the Shaka Amos and the slave thing,
mm-hmm.
I was looking at his course, and in his course, and I forget what sources he actually cited. I think it's Anaccalypsis, which I know is very old, but in his sources it says that there was actually two gnomes, I guess you would call them, called Nubia, and that was just two places that was a part of Kemet that would just happen to be their names. So if you can talk about that, anything about that you like, that'd be good.
Okay, no problem. Actually, I touched on that topic probably 5 years ago now, and periodically I have discussions about it, since then because it comes up. And so if I don't know if you are my friend on Facebook or you in any of our groups, but I've typed these, had these discussions a long time ago, and it's like a continuous session. It's a good discussion. And so what it is that, first of all, Nubia is a misnomer. The Egyptians didn't call any place Nubia that people are trying to call Nubia today. Like today, the general idea about Nubia is that Nubia is a place that's south of Kemet or south of modern day Egypt, the Arab Republic of Egypt. They call that place south of there.
Can I cut you off
Nubia.
real fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the text he says that one place I believe is called Nubit, and the other place was called Nubait, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. So, but first we have to see how people are using it today. So when the average person today says Nubia, they're trying to refer to a region or territory south of modern day Egypt today, in Sudan. So instead of saying Sudan, they're saying Nubia as this northern part of Sudan and right below Egypt. Never was that ever called Nubia by the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians had two prominent cities that were named gold towns. The word Nub is gold, and Nubit as a feminine form is the name of these cities. Today, those two cities are known as Ombos and Komombo. And you can actually Google it and look it up in Wikipedia. It'll show you where they are in Egypt. They'll show you the map, the diagram. Ombos and Komombo. And one of those, either Komombo or Ombos, I forget which one, but one of those is also the name for the or the location of the archaeological site called Nakada. So you have archaeologists that have dug different graves in this location. They refer to that area as Nakada, and you have Nakada 1, 2, 3. These are pre-dynastic material culture that archaeologists have dug up and studied and so on and so forth. But the same area is called either Ombos or Komombo, and I may have them in reverse. But both of these cities are within the borders of ancient Egypt, and even today, modern Egypt is still within the borders. So when people are using these terms Nubia to refer to something outside of Egypt to its south, that's a misnomer. It's incorrect. Because at all times, what would be called Nubia, the two of them, they're inside Egypt. So the real Nubians are Egyptians. They're just Egyptians who lived in one of these two cities. So it's completely confused and it's a misnomer. And so I always speak against people using it. So that, so I try to straighten that up. The place that people are trying to call Nubia was called by the Egyptians Ta-Nehisi. So the region was called Ta-Nehisi. The people were called Nehisiu. And then within that region, you had specific cities. You had Wawet, you had Eret, you had even the Magi, or a city called Magi, from where we get Magi, who was the military force at different times for the Egyptians, and so on and so forth. So these cities are in Ta-Nehisi, but they will say Nubians today, and that's a misnomer. Now, how did that come about? Is because of early Egyptologists, they translated the word Nehisu as Negro. And because Negro became a politically incorrect term, they changed Negro to Nubian. And so that's the chain link of how that word was used. So this is where people say it was a bad, it's like a bad term or whatever. But that was never done by the Egyptians. So don't allow anybody to tell you that that's a term the Egyptians use in a negative way. No, that's a term that early Egyptologists just simply translated the word Nehisu as Negro, the Negro land. And then, like I said, Negro became kind of pejorative or politically incorrect to use. So they changed it to Nubian. And so that's how that came about in scholarship. But historically, the Egyptians never called anybody South Nubians. They called their own people who lived in those two cities would be considered residents of those two cities, Nubit.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So that cleared everything up, and that's good. Shaka was actually right, and again, sounds like Zion don't know what he's talking about. But anyway,
right. So now, if Zion is saying that it was used pejoratively by the Egyptians, that's completely incorrect. It's a name of two cities, and you can look them up. Actually, if you look up, let's do this now, because I mean that's what this is for. We just having a discussion. So if somebody has a their browser open, or they have a free tab they could open up, look it up right now. Go to Wikipedia and look up Komombo. and it's Komombo, Komombo, and you can look up Ombos, Ombos. Those are the two cities' names. Now they have Arabic names today, and I don't recall what those Arabic names are, but to find them, you can find them under the names I just mentioned. And it's going to tell you right there that it was anciently known as Nubd or Nubit, and it means gold town or city of gold. And these were places where gold was in abundance. All right, and they mined it and so on and so forth. But that it would be the true Nubians. Now, the reason why I mentioned Nakada though is because it's important that when people say that Nubia is the mother of Egypt, they really don't know what they're, that's really incorrect. It's this town Nubit, which was archaeologically known as Nakada. It's a pre-dynastic town from which a lot of things came out of, the administration and so on. So Nakada was a very important cultural center in pre-dynastic times, which grew and sprout the dynastic periods. So when they say Nubia is the mother, as in giving birth to, they're talking about this period in this area that archaeologists call Nakada, but it was later called by the Egyptians after unifying and so on, so forth, Nubit. So people gotta understand that. All right. Now I did a whole presentation on this. I have slides and everything, but of course, for time's sake, I'm definitely not going to go into that now. But if you look on our channel, on this channel right here, if you look on the channel, just go through the titles. You'll see. I'll see if I can find the exact title, and then you can watch the video.
But hey, if no one else got any other questions, I got some.
Nah, go ahead, no problem. Well, let me see if anything in the chat real quick, see if anything stands out. Just let me go through. Okay, Sarah Juhudi said, "How would we write out sister?" That's a good question. Let me do this. Let me change my screen because y'all are staring at the screen, and y'all know that I always like to use a whiteboard when I speak. So all right, so I'm going to type this out for everybody to see. And this is important to understand that, of course, we're not going to draw the hieroglyphs. And so we use a system of transliteration. And there's two major systems that we use. One is called manual decodage, and the other one is called diacritic. You see diacritic when those small little characters like dots and things are written around text. Manual decodage is case sensitive, so you'll see it in upper and lower case, purposely done that way. All right. And they both have their reasons for usage. And you're not going to that. I think somebody has their mic up. I'm hearing noise in the background. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna type it out so you can see it. Sin is brother. SN, just that simple. And Senet is spelled this way. And it's not the capital S. My spell correction is gonna do that automatically, but that's how it's transliterated. And I like to point this out because when you try to spell it out, when you try to transcribe it based on today's pronunciation, people will spell it, make an attempt to spell it out. So I'm going to show you. It's going to show you how that looks. So sin will simply be S-E-N, and sometimes people spell it S-O-N. Some people say sin, some people say son. Not son, but son. And then for sister, they either spell it out and pronounce it as senet or sonnet. Okay, so this is how it's transcribed based on pronunciation, and then this group on the left is the more precise transliteration. So transliterations, you'll find them universal. They'll be the same by anybody, but the way that it's transcribed, spelled out, may differ depending on who you're talking to. Some people spell Hotep Hotep. Some people say Hetep and spell it Hetep, and so on and so forth. Some people spell Medew, MDU. Some people spell it MEDU. Some people spell it MEDEW, Medew. So so you have to be flexible on the way people spell it based on pronunciation versus the more scientific or more rigid way of transliterations. And the way that we deal with transliterations. All right, we deal with both, but we emphasize transliterations. That way everybody is the exact same way. All right, so I just wanted to show that. Let's just see. I'm going to go down here. Some more. Do you do partial payments? I got the textbook. Okay, Chavis. Yes. So Chavis, if you inbox me on Facebook, Facebook. Inbox me on Facebook. You know, my name is Wujao. I'm the only person with that name. So inbox me on Facebook. And for everybody else, he's asking partial payments in terms of the class. All right. Let's see. Keep on going down. How do you get on? Okay, I'm gonna post the link again. Matter of fact, let me do that now. Here's the link to get on the panel. I just posted it. All right, now this thing jumped. I think I skipped some people's questions. Well, let me go back up. Okay, Donnie C. A deeper understanding that the average layperson wouldn't know. For instance, most modern Egyptians simply refer to it as a key or life. Oh, I see. Donnie C is clarifying. Okay, so the Ankh, remember, the Ankh is a rope. That's what the Ankh is. It's a rope. If you actually look at what it is, what inspired its design and what you see as a glyph itself, it's a rope. And the word Ankh in the language is, there's a word Ankh that means sandal strap. And it took on a similar shape of what we see as an Ankh. And that particular word Ankh means sandal strap. And there's also a word Ankh that means life and things related to that. Okay, there's a word Ankh that means oath. And there may be a connection with the one that means life to the one that means oath, because people took oath and obligated their life to a specific, contract or agreement or obligation when you take an oath and so on and so forth. All right. Now, in terms of esoteric, we have to be careful of that, because you had European early Egyptologists and just a lot of the elite scholars that came out of Europe, out of the Renaissance era, that was probing Egypt and trying to ascertain the wisdom from ancient Egypt. And you have two major schools of thought that came out of that effort in the late 1700s and early 1800s. One school branched and went the route that culminates into things like the Theosophical Society, the Order of the Golden Dawn, and those esoteric orders and fraternities and so on. Talking about the Akasha records and these out of body beings communicating the secrets and this and that to them, Madame Blavatsky and those type of people. And then on the other side, you have people that took the more scientific approach, which became the discipline that we now know as Egyptology. So Egyptology is one side, and then the esoteric groups and literature and all that kind of stuff was the other side. And I'm pointing this out because what we tend to do today, we're attracted to the esoteric stuff because it sounds good. It doesn't call for much studying because you just kind of accept things and whatnot. And so a lot of people want to romanticize and I don't want to say almost spookify different things under the guise or under the name or term of being esoteric. and it wasn't like that. What it boils down to is that we have to remember that writing in and of itself is very, very young in terms of the age of humanity. You know, Homo sapiens sapiens have been roaming the earth since over 200,000 years. Writing was only invented approximately 5,000 years ago. So in that timeline, writing was as if it's born yesterday. And so you got to look at it like this. And this example I always use. What if everything that you put on your phone, everything you put on your tablet, everything you put on your laptop or your desktop computer, what if at the end of every day, or when you cut your computer off or those things off, you had to start all over again every time? Like once you turn the power off, everything was wiped out. We had nothing, no such thing as a hard drive to store anything, or RAM, random access memory to store things while the computer's on or anything. We had none of that. So every time you turned it off, you had to start all over. That would defeat the purpose, right? We would get nowhere. That's like it'd be crazy for us right now. And so likewise with humanity, every generation, to avoid every generation from starting over with the body of knowledge that the community of people had, they had to have a way of transmitting, or what we would say today, storing that knowledge. And so this was done orally for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, millennia after millennia after millennia after millennia, until 5,000 years ago when writing was invented. Okay, so now, in order to ensure the passing of information from one generation to the other, they had to think of ingenious ways to contain the knowledge, the information. So they created mnemonic devices and other devices. They had to invent them. Today we take it for granted and we call it figurative language or figurative expression, such as allegories, metaphors, hyperboles, similes, all these different things we know today. These things were invented for the purpose of storing and keeping the wisdom alive from one generation to the next. So, along with the figurative way of explaining things, there was a reality behind it. So think of it, every symbol is a stand-in for a reality. And I'm going to give you an obvious one. Words, languages, they're not the real thing. If I say the word elephant, the word elephant is not the elephant itself. The word stands in for the animal. It's not the animal itself. So the word becomes a symbol for the reality. And so what happened is people lost the reality behind the figurative speech. And so you have groups of people, although it's lost, they will make assumptions and they start being creative and start inventing the realities behind the figurative speech and just make up things. And that's is oftentimes being called esoteric doctrines, where people start making up stuff and it gets really, really into pseudoisms and just some fake wrong information. Then you have those people who will have the realities behind the figurative speech, and some of it's lost. So out of the losing of that, you have the pseudo stuff, and then you have the belief systems, where people don't know what's literal and what's figurative. Okay, so it's like me. If I were to write down a piece of paper, I use this all the time. If I write down a piece of paper, I have butterflies in my stomach. You know, I'm about to give a speech before a room of, 10,000 people. And, I turn to my friend and say, hey, I got butterflies in my stomach. And I wrote that down. I wrote that story down. Somebody later on may find it, not knowing that I'm using a figurative expression of a metaphor. They may think I mean it literally. Like, oh man, the humans in Wujiao's time, they ate butterflies. When I never ate butterflies. I'm just saying butterflies in my stomach as a metaphor for the concept, the real concept of nervousness. All I'm saying is that I'm nervous, but I express it as I got butterflies in my stomach. You see, there's nothing esoteric about that. It's just the knowledge, unless you want to say the esoteric was the inner keeping of the connections between the figurative and the reality, then that's fine. And there are some groups that try to maintain that. And those are true esoteric groups and doctrines. But it's been abused, and people will call anything esoteric, and they start guessing and start making up stuff. And so you have a lot of that out here. So we have to be mindful and be careful of that. So don't.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Would you? Yeah, this is Kadeem. I just had one question because you said esoteric too many times for me, and I was wondering what does that mean exactly? Because as you said, people have been using that incorrectly, and I always think esoteric is just whatever Matt Blavatsky and that Theosophical Society had to say, but I think it's more than that, and it might be still on the edge of what people are trying to say.
Okay, well, so esoteric is like a percentage of people. It's like a percentage out of a whole. It's like a small portion. That's really what it means. So when we apply that esoteric to information, what we're saying is that only a small number of people know something versus the population of people. So you have an esoteric group, which means that they're a set aside group. They're a group of people set aside, and only they know certain things that the rest of the population don't know. Okay, so that's how it's being used, and I'm saying that has been taken advantage of, and people will use it in a romanticized or gimmicky way to lure people's attention, and that's been going on for decades. And so you have esoteric or esotericism as a movement when you can dump a lot of different organizations within that. Yeah. Within that, so you have the Theosophical Society, like I said, Order of the Golden Dawn, and some similar orders that come out of that. So that's what I'm saying. We have to guard ourselves against that. Like, true esotericism is real. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'll give you a real practical esoteric group. I'll give you several of them. The United States military is very esoteric because there are things that the generals in the Army, Air Force, Marines, Navy, there's things that a small group of people know, like the national security, information for the country and stuff and whatever.
Yeah, everything is classified.
Right, classified information or information that only you have to have a certain clearance. That is esoteric. That's true esoteric or esotericism. At play. That's real esotericism at play. But the way that people use it is abused, and so that's why I always caution people on that. And I'm gonna tell you that, remember, a writing system is a visual representation of speech. So a lot of people think that the hieroglyphs themselves are esoteric, and that's not the case. It's how it's used, because I can speak English, but I can talk in codes, but using the English language. I can speak very figuratively to hide my meaning from a person who doesn't know. Matter of fact, if any of you all are traveling men or Freemasons, you will definitely understand this, because a lot of things are placed behind symbolisms and allegories in the Masonic doctrines.
Yeah, it's also the same way the military use their alphabets. They don't really have to say ABC. They actually say Alpha, Bravo, Charlie.
Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, yeah, and all those kinds of things. Yeah. So I just want to share that, because we just got to be mindful of it. And I always tell people to guard themselves against it, because it's abused out here today. If this was a perfect world, then, you know, I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying, but it's not. All right. So the language, remember, this is a language. This is a language of form of communication. Everybody in Egypt spoke to one another and could communicate with each other. Not everybody were literate, but everyone spoke the language. And the hieroglyphs was a writing system that represents speech. You know, so we have to have that understanding. Why would they write glyphs on the outsides of walls and obelisks and statues and even border stones if it was esoteric, meant to be kept a secret from people? You see, so, you know, I just want to make sure people understand that. All right. And let me go on down the line, because I'm probably taking too long with each of these answers. All right. So City Slicker Entertainment. True, India, Indus, and Mesopotamia are the only ones that had writing systems. The others are adaptations. True, that's the word Kashmir comes from. Okay, I'm not sure what they're addressing. Oh, when I say probably Kashmir. Let's see. What's next? Okay, why do Egyptologists call or translate things in the underworld text as spells? Well, because of the understanding, or the, you know, to try to keep things into the framing of magic and mysticism and things, and not something that is practical. So they translate them as spells, and that's really a not a good way to refer to these things as spells or magic. We have to understand that magic itself is simply a skill. Magic is two things at once. Let's just take a magician or an illusionist or a magician. The person performing magic, what they're actually doing is a skill to them. They're actually executing a skill. So they know how they're doing it and the whole nine. It's the onlooker or the audience who's ignorant of how it's done that considers it magic. So to the magician, he's performing a skill, but to the audience, he's doing magic. And so magic is rooted in ignorance. But it's not ignorance of the doer, it's ignorance of the onlooker. And so translating these things as spells and magic and all this other kind of stuff is a confession and an admission based on these early Egyptologists and folks studying this stuff. They're coming from a place of ignorance, and they're calling these things by such titles to reflect that. All right. The word spell that they're translating is the same word for speech. So why do they call it spells in some instances, and then speech in other? The word ru or ra, which, and matter of fact, the name of the language, Ra and Kemet. Are they saying that the language is a bunch of spells? No, Ra and Kemet literally means the mouth of Kemet. Ra or ro means mouth, but it's used figuratively to mean what comes out of the mouth, which is language, speech. So Ra and Kemet is the language of Kemet. Ra'u Niu Peret Imheru. That is the title of the Book of the Dead. Most people just say Peret Imheru, but it's Ra'u Niu Peret Imheru, which means utterances. Ra'u Niu, which is utterances of the coming. Peret Imheru, the coming forth by day. So it's the utterances. But people will translate Ra'u as spells, magic, and all that other kind of stuff. All right, so it's so just be mindful of that. So why they do that? I'm not gonna pretend to know why, as if they said so, but it's a reflection of that whole idea about magic being rooted in ignorance. All right, so and it's interesting. Let me see. Let me keep going down.
I think when people say they Egypt, Kemet or whoever did magic, I think they got that from like fictional cartoons like that show Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what it reminds me of when people talk like that.
Yeah, and I did a presentation called, well, I asked the question, what does God, magic, and aliens have in common? And go check out that presentation. I did a whole presentation showing the connection between God, magic, and aliens, and the way that it's all connected to ignorance.
Is it on this channel?
Yeah, it's on this YouTube channel, on Sesh Netcher. It's on Facebook as well. All right, so y'all can check that out. And I'm just trying to keep going down the list. Any updates? Khalifa's Nagas asks, any updates on the beginners class? The website is not responding. Yeah, you can sign up. The website should be responding. I'm looking at it right now. As far as the website is concerned, go to sableuniversity.com, and the course that you want to register for is this one. I'm sharing it on the screen right now. It's the Beginner's Introduction to Egyptian Hieroglyphic. You go there and you can register. So if you have any problems, let me know. But in terms of it not responding, everything works, because I'm actually looking at it right now. All right. So, and it's not too late. So that goes for anybody. If you are interested in learning the language from a beginner's level, getting things started, 12 weeks, and we'll straighten you out. All right. Okay, Marquise Kidd said learning about brainwaves have been very beneficial. Okay, thanks a ton. Okay, I think you're talking about another talk, a previous talk where we were talking about the different brain states and brainwaves. So yeah, yay, that's good. Keep looking into it. Adrian Padilla, what do we know about humor in Kemet? What was funny to them? Yeah, there's a lot of there's some satirical texts that's available that you could look up. Just look under the genre of satirical text, or satire and things like that. They had different writings that would today be like comedy or satire. That what we would call that today. So look into that for more, like in terms of me quoting some and reciting some right now. No, I'm not able to do that, but yes, they do exist. So let me just tell you like that. Yes, they do exist. All right. Think about it. It's a civilization that lasted over 3,000 years. If they had no humor, imagine if nobody laughed, nobody had humor, nobody, told jokes, whatever those jokes may be for that period of time. They definitely told jokes and did those kinds of things. So it wasn't always about death. See, people think that Egyptians were preoccupied with death, like they sat around and focused on death 24/7. That was everything. Everything was about death.
Yeah, I'm about to say, they wouldn't last that long if they couldn't laugh.
Yeah, exactly. If they didn't, they had dancing, everything. Everything that we have today, not in the exact same form, maybe, but everything we have today, they had. Even problems. Some people want to make Egypt out of a utopia, perfect heaven. No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. It was the preponderance of the hierarchical value system that they had and what they focused on that laid a foundation for the genius to blossom, and for Egypt to become, one of the greatest civilizations ever to exist on the planet. That was because of, the majority of the underlying principles that people adopted and inculcated in their psyche and in their behavior and stuff like that. But was it a utopia, perfect utopia? No. But it was definitely great. It was great enough to last over 3,000 years. Not only last, as in surviving, last, but prosper, last and prosper. It became, the true light of the ancient world. Egypt was really the light of the ancient world. In its heyday. And then a lot of people want to compare or set up this comparison or competition between Egypt and other places, or even Egypt and other African communities. Almost like East Coast and West Coast in America. East Coast rap and West Coast rap, and then create this beef, this imaginary beef that becomes real or whatever. People are doing that, with Africa, the continent. They're saying East Africa, which is Kemet, Nubia, and Kush, as they say, against West Africa, and things like that. And you got these people battling, in conversations with the two, and it's really a waste of time. Philitentist says the people in the future wouldn't understand that unless they understood the social constructs that ageist societies held when they said those figures of speech. Yes, but yes, you're right. And to add to what you said is that these cultures figured ways to embed the key. It's almost like how we do maps today. When you see the old maps that you get at the gas station and you unfold these road maps, the road maps will have all the highways and things on the map. But then at the bottom left, right, or top left, right, you'll see a legend, a key, a legend that will tell you what the symbols stand for. It will tell you the ratio of the distance, like 1 inch equals a mile, or whatever that is. And so you're able to look at the map and you have a key or a legend to interpret it properly. Well, in these African communities, they would embed the figurative expressions, they would embed the legends and keys along with the figurative expressions. And as long as those two things travel together in the same community, everyone was able to encode and decode the information. Once those two things were separated from one another and over time, then the information was lost. The realities were lost. And all you have is the figurative expressions. And those figurative expressions can go to the extreme and become totally pseudo, or it can go the route of a belief system. And that's what gives birth to these belief systems, where people are actually believing that a man named Jesus walked the water. They actually believe that a man turned water into wine. They actually believe a man or a snake talked to a woman. They actually believe that a woman came from the ribs of a man. They actually believe that some God who was supposed to be everywhere, but all of a sudden he's only in a garden walking in the cool of the day, or coming down to see a tower in which men built to confound the languages, or to turn a woman into a pillar of salt because she looked back at a city that she wasn't supposed to, and things like that. So this gives birth to those belief systems because the realities behind the figurative expressions were lost. That's how that happens. All right, so we better get it together. So I'm scrolling. Man, I think this thing jumped. If you all see a question that I may have missed, okay, I think I'm caught back up. Okay, the ancient Egyptians, let me see. Okay, Robert Rand, that is what Billy Carson is doing, trying to restart the Theosophical school with our young people. Yeah, if that's the case, I'm not familiar with Billy Carson or whoever that is, but if that's the case, that is going to be very detrimental to our progress. I'm just going to tell you that right now. That's going to be very detrimental. Okay, phylogist. People don't connect that word to modern terminology like that normally. Okay, I'm not sure what word. Nisure says always on my square. All right, so I think he's a fellow traveling man. Often tried, hopefully never denied. Let's see. Bud John, please explain the different processes used to understand written and spoken language. Example, transposing and transliteration, etc. All right, that's a good question, and let me do it this way. I'm gonna share something on the screen. All right. So I have this on the screen. In order to answer that question, Bud John, I'm gonna do my best to be as concise as I can. But that question is a good question, and it deserves, a full lesson. And I give those lessons, but it's just for time purposes. I can't sit here and do it a full lesson right now. But a lot of the information is in our book. If you take the beginner's course, you'll definitely learn it. But it's also in our book. Has the Egyptian writing system or hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? Okay. But let me just give a brief understanding. Okay, so we have to back all the way up and understand what is language. Now, because we learn to communicate at a very, very young age, we take a lot of things regarding language for granted. Okay, so it's things that we do in our communication that we never really pay attention to or single out and name and identify, but yet we do it. So if you were to ask yourself, what is a word? Now, as trivial as that may sound when I ask it, but if you stop and think about it, you're going to find yourself having a hard time to define what a word is. And so, for instance, if I say, what's a good example? I use an example in my upcoming book, but let's just say I say the word, what's a good word? I'm trying to remember, because there's a few. But anyway, let me just pick anything. If I say the word play, play. If I say play, if I say plays, plays. Are those two different words, or are those two variations of the same word? Are those two different words, or are those two variations of the same word? Now, there's an answer for it, but my point is not to go and teach that lesson, but I want to point out that if I say play, plays, then I say played and player. Are those all different words, or are they different variations of the same word, or what? So I only bring that example out to show you that our idea of what a word is a little bit fuzzy. When you think about it. So going back to language, a lot of us don't really understand what language is. What is the phenomenon language? What is that? And so what I have on the screen is the answer. So what is language? Language is the phenomenon of, before I define language, let me just explain what I have on the screen. So as you see, I have a triangle on the screen. On the top, I have link. On the left, I have form, signifier, sound pattern. On the right, I have meaning, signified, and concept at each of those points. And in the middle, I have the word sign. So what this is saying, what this is illustrating, is that what we're calling a word, what our modern general idea of what a word is, it's really a sign. And a sign contains 3 elements. And those 3 elements are at those points. Okay, so we have the form, which could be the sound pattern of a word or characters written on paper or some form of medium. So either audible or visible. That's the form. Then you have the meaning, which is the concept. And technically in linguistics, we refer to these as the signifier or the signified. So you have those two elements, but those two elements are linked together. So you have this link that links those two together. And all three, the form and the meaning and its link, that triad forms what we call a sign. And the reason why people can communicate and understand one another is because in their mental lexicon, in the heart of their psyche, they're walking around with these same signs. If you don't have the same signs in your mind, you're not going to be able to understand one another. Okay? So that's what language is. And so language is a phenomenon of the sharing of signs. If you cannot share signs, or you don't share signs in your mind with the next person, you're not going to understand them. Therefore, language is not happening. What's coming out their mouth will be just sounds or noise. And when we look at animals, that's what we think. We don't say that for humans, but when we look at an animals making all those noises, we don't carry those same signs in our psyche as animals do to each other. So we just say, hey, they're making a noise. And we name it. Dogs make a noise, we call it barking. Cats make a noise, we say meow. Lions make a noise, we say roar. Ducks make a noise, we say they quack. Pigs make a noise, we say they oink. So we got different names for the noises, but we don't understand any of that because we're not walking around with the same signs. Therefore, language is not occurring. That's not language. Okay? So I just want to start there because we have to understand that to understand the processes of understanding the difference between written and spoken languages. All right? Because we have to first know what language is. Now, a written language, a writing system, is the visual representation of speech. So it's the visual representation of that which is spoken. So that includes the form. So regardless if it's spoken or if it's written, if it's spoken, your ears are involved. If it's written, your eyes are involved. So whether it's your ears or your eyes, spoken or written, that's the form side of language. You have a whole nother side, which is the meaning or concept, the conceptualizations. So to illustrate this, let me show you this example here. Because you asked about translations or transliterations. All right. Now, this is, and what I'm sharing with you all are things that I've spoken on because I have these slides. I didn't just type this stuff out. These are slides or things that I've went over before at different times, and I got different slides for the same things. But in this particular one, I'll use it. So I have two languages, English and Spanish. Even when we say that, even when I just said that, English language and Spanish language, what am I saying? What I'm saying is that you have a group of people that share a set of signs in common with one another. We label that English. We have another group of people that share a commonality of signs in their minds, and we call that group Spanish. This set of signs is different from this set of signs. That's why we call them different names. Okay? But now, there's a such thing as translations where we can translate from this set over to this set and vice versa. So how do we do that? Or how are we able to do that? We're able to do it because what translations are, what we're doing is we're matching the concept side. So if I go back to this, what we're doing, we're matching the concept side, the meaning side. And when we match the meaning side, we can therefore know the difference in the form. So this is why I have this written here. So as a concept, we have a cube type of structure that has doors and windows, okay, that you could walk in and out of, and it has a roof. It has a covering on top. It's a cube shaped big structure. It has a door and some windows. In English, that concept we identify with the sound pattern of house, and in the written pattern of HOUSE. That's how we spell it out on paper. We pronounce this house. Okay, so this is connected to this by this link, and all three of these, this triad is called a sign. So everyone that shares that sign in their head, they can understand me. I say house, they know what I mean. Now in Spanish, we match the same concept. A covered, big, large structured cube with a door and some windows that we can walk in and out of. But their form or sound pattern is different. Their form or sound pattern is casa, spelled C-A-S-A. So what we can therefore say is that house translates to casa in Spanish, or in reverse. Casa translates to house in English, because we're matching one side of the word or the sign. Okay, so that's the phenomena of translations, is to do that. All right, so this is what we do. Transliterations is something different. Transliterations is when you take a source script and you bring it over into a target script. So for example, let's see if I can pull up something quick here. All right, so let me show you this. And you know, I don't like this dead silence, so I'm gonna keep talking while I switch this over. Okay, so now what you're looking at is transliterations. And so what is translation? Transliteration is an orthographic endeavor, which means it involves scripts, from script to script. And it's done so by the conversion of a text from a source script to a target script. It's just that simple. So when we transliterate the hieroglyphs, for example, we're simply transferring the glyphs, which will be the source, over into the English or Latin orthography, which will be the target script. And so at the bottom here, we have example of doing it with Chinese. So here's 2 Chinese characters, and that's the source script, and we're bringing it over into the Latin orthography. PIN for this symbol, and then YIN for this symbol. We do the same thing for hieroglyphs. This symbol here, it'll be the source, and we bring it over into the Latin orthography with RA, this one MS, this one SW. That is transliterations. That's all it is. Now, we have to keep in mind, as we continue to say, this transfer is not a transference of phonetics, which is how it sounds, or semantics, which is what it means, but rather a convention in orthography. All we're doing is transferring the way this looks in a source script over to the way this looks in a target script. It's not carrying over meaning or sound. All right. Translation is when we carry over meaning. So translation is a communication of meaning of a source language text by means of an equivalent target language text. And I just explained how that was done. You match concepts. Okay. That's where you get equivalent target language text. So we have to find equivalencies or very, very close ones. We call it semantic range. Okay. And so now translations depend on knowledge of language. Now, if I go back to what I was showing you before, the only way you can match concepts is if you're familiar with the set of signs that are grouped as Spanish or grouped as English. That's the only way you can do it. The only way you could translate English into Spanish and Spanish into English is if you know both languages. You have to have both set of signs in your mind as a translator. All right, that's important. Remember that. So here I'm showing transliteration and translation. So first we have to transliterate. So this 3 glyphs becomes RA, MS, SW, and then we translate those into its meaning. Ra is Ra. Mes is the word to give birth or to bore. And Su is a dependent pronoun, third person, masculine, which is him. So literally it would be Ra bore him. But we have to get a little creative because the grammar of the source language in most cases do not match the grammar of the target language. So you have to kind of make it make sense in your target language in English. So we would say, it is Ra who gave birth to him. And by the way, that is the meaning of the name Ramesses. That's what we're looking at, the name Ramesses. It means Ra gave birth to him. All right. So hopefully that answers your question. And again, I've done this is stuff that you learn in a beginner's level, because at a beginner's level, you have to learn how the hieroglyphic writing system works, how it functions, how the glyphs can function and things. And so this is what we teach and go over very thoroughly. All right. So like I said, I can't give a whole course in the time that, we're live right now, but hopefully that's enough. All right. So anybody on the panel, listen, I'm here talking, running my mouth, but if anybody on the panel has something to say about what I just said or anything else, go ahead. Yes, no, maybe so.
No, I ain't got more to say, but I just want to thank you for the opportunity to, for you answer my question. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. And make sure you come to our live sessions. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're invited to come and take the class if you're interested. Definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got, I got the beginner's guide. I had that for years. I already read through it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I got a SARS book. Subiti. I got that.
Okay.
I'm going to get Illusion Volume 2, and I want to get the book about the decipherment you got about talking about Walter Williams. So I definitely want to grab that one too.
Oh, definitely. All right. Well, yeah.
So I definitely support the squad. You know what I mean?
All right. And if you have any questions, ever, saying, always feel free to.
I definitely got more. I'm not on like social media, so you won't see me there. But I definitely, I'll be popping up on YouTube, and I definitely got more questions.
All right. Okay. Well, if you think of any before we get off, you're welcome to ask, because it seems like everybody's scared to come on. Let me post the link one more time, because this is gonna be our last little stretch anyway. I'll post the link again for those who want to jump on and be part of the discussion. So let me see. I'm gonna keep going down. Marquis says, have you ever looked into a game called Assassin's Creed Origins? It's about ancient Kemet. They attempted to recreate how it looked and functioned. It has some nice visuals. I wonder how accurate it is. Okay, no, I've heard of Assassin's Creed, that whole series and stuff, but I've never played it. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because I used to be a gamer, like a straight up gamer, and I'm afraid that if I had a gaming console like Xbox or PS4 or whatever, PS5, y'all wouldn't see me. You know what I mean? I would get lost because, games, man, I get caught up in games and I go overboard. So, I
do got a question though.
Okay.
All right. So I know that there's a movement right now trying to make, revive, Sesh and Netcher or Ra and Kemet as a living language, right? As so it's not a dead language.
Okay.
Do you think it would be easier trying to do that by starting people off with like hieratic, since it's an easier way of just learning how to write it? Just have to think about it.
No. We've addressed this. We've talked about this. We got a video for that too. We have a video in our archives where we address that very question, and it's really the other way around. The formal what they call the statuary glyphs or stone, the ones that's carved, it's easier because the glyphs still resemble the objects in which they depict, and it's nice and precise. It's clear.
Right.
It's, you know, whereas what they're calling hieratic is harder. It's like in English, print and cursive. When you're a child, we learn print, then we learn cursive. So it's the same thing. So that's the reason why in English we go from print, which is isolated characters, into flowing connected characters, ligatures and things like that. So it becomes easier. So that's why. But now we encourage people to learn what they're calling hieratic. See, we call it simplified Sesh Medew Netcher.
Okay.
And so we encourage that as well. As a matter of fact, Sonat Emiket she wrote a book already on how to a series. She's writing a series with part 1 already out, volume 1, dealing with the monoliterals, on how to draw them, how to write them, or how to carve them. Well, nobody's really carving, but how to write them. And eventually it's going to work its way into the hieratic. So that's going to be a continuous series of books that's out there. So we encourage it. We definitely encourage it. But in terms of what's easier, the formal glyphs are easier. The formal glyphs are easier to write. Now, a lot of people feel like they're not artists and they can't draw. And to write, it's easier to write the what they're calling hieratic. So I think that's what you mean in terms of writing it. But reading it, it's easier to start with the formal glyphs.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that's the difference. So, yeah. And that's only because people feel like they can't draw. You know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm the same way. I feel the same, exactly the same way. Like, I can't draw this.
No, but listen, and that's why Emicat wrote the book, because really it's intimidating when you just look at it and are fresh. But when you really get down to it, it's not hard, man. It's not hard, whether you can draw or not. It's a formula to it. And matter of fact, hold up. Let me see if I have it here. Boy, it's crazy that a lot of these questions will be asked, and I'll already have a slide or something ready to go. Okay, I thought I had something on this one, but I don't. But let me pull up one though. I'm gonna show you how easy it is, or I'm gonna show you the reason why we say it's easy. And so if I can pull this up. I know I had it up. Let me see if this is it. Okay, nope, not right here. Well, if I find it before we end, I will show it.
You know, the crazy thing is I bought a little pamphlet from some Jetty, right, that teaches you how to draw it. Damn it, it ain't working.
Okay. I'm gonna hold up. I want to show this. So I'm gonna find it before we end. But yeah. So if anybody else on the panel, see we had brother Chuck, Chris, also Kadeem, Sean. So if y'all have any questions or anything, any comments?
All right. Well, Hotep to you, brother. Be good.
Oh yeah, Hotep, definitely.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Loud and clear.
Sorry about that. I was in the bank, and I don't know if you answered the question while I stepped out of the car. Okay, so the level that you ended in, that last test that you took, when you start the class again, when you pick up where you left off, do you take the test over again, or you pick up at that point?
You should be able to pick up where you left off. Yep. You shouldn't have to have if you're having issues or problems, yeah, definitely let me know and I could look into it. But you should be able to pick up where you left off.
Oh, and one more thing, because I know you got a busy schedule, but if you can, I need to speak with you off air about a couple of things we had talked about earlier.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, cool, thank you.
But here's what I wanted to show you all. Right here. Now, this is what I meant when I said that it's very easy. And so every single glyph in the writing system, in the repertoire of glyphs, they conform to 3 main sizes or shapes. So you have tall and narrow glyphs. You have tall and narrow glyphs. You have low and wide glyphs, or low and broad glyphs, such as this glyph here. Tall and narrow would be these two identical glyphs on the right. And then you have small glyphs. And see, each of these glyphs fits into an imaginary quadrant, what the scribes would draw on the walls using chalk or chalk lines. Same thing that carpenters do today when they want to hang drywall or sheetrock. They usually pop a line to make their cuts so straight, straight cuts or whatever the case is for whatever. And so they did the same thing, but they did it in a grid. And so they have an imaginary quadrant where they drew these glyphs and carved them out. And so these glyphs fit nice and neatly within divisions of a quadrant. So for example, these are two quadrants right here. See these two big squares, and each of these two big squares is divided by 4 smaller squares. So each quadrant in this image is 1/4 of a quadrant. So each small square is 1/4 of a quadrant. And so you have 8 altogether. And so these glyphs fit neatly in these quadrants. So the tall and narrow will take up the space of 2/4 or 1/2 of a quadrant, but in height. That's why they call them tall and narrow. Whereas the low and broad will take up 2 or 1/4 of a quadrant, but in width. And then the small glyphs will take up a 1/4 quadrant. You see that? And so once you understand this principle, you don't really have to be able to draw perfectly. You'll start to get the hang of it, because your stuff will look neat because you're following this quadrant pattern. And that's the same exact thing that the scribes did in ancient times. All right. So again, don't let people or don't let it be intimidating, and don't let people intimidate you when it comes to learning the language, learning to write it, draw it, and don't be afraid of this esoteric thing. All right, so I just wanted to show that. And here's another one with the quail chick. Okay, birds are probably the most difficult. The scribes had a problem with birds. The birds was not the scribes' favorite glyphs. The bird glyphs, I'm going to tell you. Because the birds glyphs left a lot of space around them. So what they did, they would crunch a small glyph right behind or in front of birds. So this word right here is the word tut, as in the word Tutankhamen. It means image, and it's the word tut. But the first T is within this space. The other T is within this space, but it forms a nice, neat square. You see how neat that looks? So they had this understanding. So I just wanted to share that with everybody on that subject, because it was asked.
Hotep, I just came in because y'all talking about penmanship and all that.
Hi, Hotep.
Hotep. Okay, Hotep, I'm back. Now, no, really, I just wanted to elaborate something, because I had the same issues, and that was actually one of the things, because I cannot draw to save my life, but I can actually write, Sesh. So, and the thing was, I think it's mostly like a mental thing. And if you buy the book, I go over it on chapter 2, where it's actually literally talking about the difference between drawing and writing, and if there's if actually there is actually a difference between drawing and writing. And it's pretty much it's a mental thing, because if you notice, the thing is, if you can write, then you can if you can write like regular our alphabet and write letters and all that stuff and notes, then you can actually write Sesh. But the only difference is that is the way we set up our thinking, and that is because for a person that is drawing and for a person that is writing, quote unquote, there's no difference. The only difference between those two people is that one has a larger directory of shapes in the head that they can actually put on paper. But when you're writing, if you're writing like the regular alphabet, when you write that, you just have you have 26. You're learning you're learning how to, like, if it's an A, if it's a capital A, you're learning how to make 2 slanted lines and then 1 horizontal line, if that makes sense. And that's it. So you have you have a standard set of shapes that you utilize every single day when you're writing. as opposed to somebody who's drawing, where the amount of shapes that they can produce is unlimited for them, but you're literally doing the same thing. So and that's where actually when you understand that, then you actually you won't be afraid of like, I cannot draw, so I don't know if I can write the Sesh. You can. You just have to know that even for when you're drawing, you're just literally making just a few different shapes. You're making a curve, you're making it, and you're making a line, and it's just the different angles of the lines, and then the different curvatures of the curve, of the curve, and that's about it. But if you can make a curve and if you can make a straight line, then you can draw. But the book really goes over it like really really well. So then you find yourself literally drawing, and like Seba Uja was saying, just so that you don't get you don't draw like inflated birds and things like that. You have the grid system, so then you know how far your line is going to be, if it's the angle, how slanted it is going to be, or if it's a curve, how far on the grade are you going to be curving or making that curvature. And that's about it. But if you get the book, it's simple, because trust me, I write Sesh. So I just say I write, but I can't draw. But yeah, get the book. There's a chapter 2 is pretty much dedicated to just breaking down the whole structure of writing versus drawing, and then just giving you all those exercises and just breaking down everything. So you actually, it's a science. I mean, and you'll get it. Just wanted to add that.
Okay, no, that's good. That's good, and hopefully, everyone, understand and everything, follow along. Now I do notice something is going on with Sabre University. I have no idea. I had it pulled up a little while when I first started, and now it seems like it's just hanging. So I'm gonna straighten that out. SabreUniversity.com, where I was telling everyone to go to register for the class. So check back later. That's all I can say. I'm gonna make sure I'm not sure what is going on, but I had it pulled up, and nothing seems to be wrong. I just gotta see what the issue is. But I just now took a look at it, and there seems to be an issue with it. So hopefully that will get squared away. So check back later if you are interested in or inbox me. If you're interested, make sure you friend me on Facebook if you're on Facebook, or send me an email, wujao@gmail.com. Same spelling as my name, WDJAU, wujao@gmail.com. So either email me or friend me on Facebook, or send me an inbox message on Facebook. And once I know that this has been resolved, then I can let you know, or just check back later, because I don't want to spend too much more time on it. We've been on for 2 hours now, and so this is a good time to wrap it up. So I'm going to check the chat some more, and let's see if we have any more questions or comments. Let's see. Keep on going down. Okay, yeah, I just still see that one. I'm working my way down. Last thing I asked was Assassin's Creed. Yeah, I can't play video games. I get caught up in it too much. Robert Rand, I think you're still talking about Billy Carson. Yeah, I'm not familiar, but anybody who's trying to go that esoteric route, or the Madame Blavatsky and the Akasha records and all that kind of stuff, that is going to be a setback. So whoever's doing it and whoever's allowing it to be done is part of the problem. I'm going to say that straight up. They're part of the problem. We are extinguishing problems. So, if or when time permits and those types of things cross our path, and we catch wind of different things, we will address it. All right, but it's a shame. See, we got to take time out to address these things when they shouldn't be, done at all. And that's why we need more people to take the classes. We need more people to learn the language. We need more people to take it serious and study, so that you don't have people out here taking advantage of people's ignorances and talking about, aliens built the pyramids, They had electricity, light bulbs. Egyptians existed with the dinosaurs. That's how old it was. Or look at the emerald tablets, of Hermes Trismegistus or Jehudi. All these other kind of things. No, man, we don't need that. That's gonna set us back. Going back to the early 1800s on that. All right, let's see. I think I'm at the end. Oh, the chosen few. Why did people in Kemet perform the act of circumcision? Does the text explain why this was a practice? That's a very good question, and that's debated, and I do not know the answer. All right, so I will tell you straight out. I do not know why, as far as why. At least not at the moment. I do not know. All right, but circumcision was definitely a practice. And there's some ideas that are out there that are being debated, and so I haven't fallen on any one of those ideas in particular because I haven't put the work in to make that determination just yet. So maybe you check back with me in the future. I'll probably have a more definitive answer and be able to give you some evidence and stuff like that. But as of right now, I'm familiar with the debate, with the different ideas, about it. Okay, so I am familiar with it. It's just that I haven't taken time out to falsify any one scholar's hypothesis and things over the other, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so don't start me lying. And I don't do that. If I don't know something, I'll tell you in a minute I don't know. And I'll go, and if it's up on my list of things to do, because it's a lot to know. It's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn. Like I feel I know what I know, but then there's a whole lot I don't know, and we can't learn everything at one time. So, there's things that are in my checklist to look into. But circumcision is something that's definitely took place. Now we did a thing last week. We showed one of the texts dealing with circumcision. We showed it, and and they weren't babies being circumcised now. So so anyway. Let's see. So, Kofi Kesa said Billy Carson's going wild. Yeah, man. See, I'm you all are talking about this person. I'm not familiar with them. Okay, so maybe I have to check it out. But the way you all are saying it, I don't think I want to check it out. Probably get frustrated if I don't have the time to address things. Gano Grills was making claims of Tahuti being from Atlantis. Man, listen. People making those claims. Okay, let me let y'all know this right now, and hear my words. The various different Netcheru, they're not sentient human beings. They're not flesh and blood sentient human beings. They're not sentient flesh and blood human beings. Okay, so if people are talking about Ptah, Saisset, Osir, Satuk, Heru, Jehudi, Khanum, and whoever else they're going to name as being from this place or that place and did this in a literal sense, they have lost their mind. Period. Okay? There is no human being that ever existed that has a human torso and legs from the neck up, their animal. There's no falcon-headed human. There's no ibis-headed human. There's no ram-headed human. There's no lion, cat, lioness-headed human. There's no frog-headed human. There's no snake-headed humans ever to exist. And the Egyptians never believed that such a creature existed. Ever. And to say so is disrespectful and belittling. It's like it's an insult. People who built one of the greatest civilizations on the planet actually believed that a human had a ram head? That a ram-headed human actually created human beings on a potter's wheel? Like, come on. You can't even make a human being on a potter's wheel. I mean, you can't even make a statue of a human being on a potter's wheel. A potter's wheel, by its very nature and its mechanics, spins. And so whatever you make on the potter's wheel when it's rotating, it has to be a certain symmetry. You're not going to make a human and then have arms and legs and all this stuff on a wheel that's spinning. Come on, man. I mean, I shouldn't even have to say any of this. All right. So no. So Tahuti coming from Atlantis or whatever the case is, they can't even explain Atlantis. All right, so just wanted to understand, for y'all people to understand that. He says, Gano said he was Tahuti, literally. He channels him or something in his mind. He did not like being called pseudo. Yeah, I know a few people that's claimed to channel Netcher. These people should be stayed away from. These people are detrimental to the progress of anyone in pursuit of knowledge and discernment and accuracy and wisdom and so on and so forth. That is no different than early Egyptologists and the branches that came out of that. Like Madame Blavatsky claimed to be a medium and channeled these beings through her to come up with this sacred language that involved Egypt and the hieroglyphs and all this other kind of stuff. George G.M. James mentions this in his or says this in his book, which people take it to heart because it's in his book, not understanding that he was just repeating what was in these esoteric books written by Blavatsky and her, her folks. All right, so we gotta be careful. Nobody's channeling that. All right, so what else? Sarah Nisut. The question was, do you agree with Tahuti principles? Don't confuse my question. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I confused your question. Let me see. Let's go back up. Oh, maybe somebody's having a conversation because that question wasn't to me. Oh, Sarah Nisut says, you don't agree with Tahuti principles, or he's asking, do you agree with Tahuti principles? So I'm not sure if he's asking me or somebody in the chat. Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a book written by a pseudonym called The Three Initiates. And it's called The Sacred Wisdom. I think it's called The Sacred Wisdom. And it's supposedly be a book coming, out of the Emerald Tablets and things like that, where it explains the principles that are attributed to Tahuti, the law of opposites, the law of attraction, and all these other kinds of things that a lot of these organizations will quote and speak about and talk about. All right, so anybody who supports that, what I want you to do is show me a primary text where Tahuti lists these principles out, and bring that to my attention, and we'll talk about it next week. All right, bring me a primary text with that in there, and we'll use that as a freestyle. We'll translate it for you. So again, bring me a primary text where Tahuti is giving this, or primary text for the Emerald Tablets, period. written by the ancient Remesh, the Egyptians, the scribe of Egypt. All right, give me that, give me these principles, and we'll use it as our for our Freestyle Friday sessions. All right, do that. All right, so it looks like we winding down. It's 9:21. We got 9 minutes. We're gonna wrap it up at 9:30 our time. So anybody on the panel got any I see we had Hush Your Mouth. We got Antoine. Son Antoine is in the building.
Hotep. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good. Yeah, we just it's open discussion, man. We just talking about anything related.
Yeah, I'm listening in. I'm been out the mix for a minute, but I'm definitely kind of interested in this Bill Carson. I don't know who he is either, so I'm trying to see if it's worth my time to even look into.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have the time right now, so I probably won't. But the way that people are bringing him up, I like to check things out myself. But if what's being said is true, then that's a detriment to our progress collectively, and that's terrible. That's sad. So we need to create an anti-pseudo war chest where people can donate just so that we can literally buy time, because it's not enough time. When you gotta live, make a living, feed yourself, feed your family,
Yes, things. I agree with that 100%. Let me know. I definitely contribute right off the top. Shit.
Listen, if we had a pseudo war chest where our day-to-day can be offset so that we could take time to address these things, man, that would be the move. Because see, when I don't have time to do something, I don't want to get frustrated, so I gotta stay away from it. But if I had time, a lot of things that I've been seeing, we could address in a very respectful way, but it need to be addressed. Like, for example, this middle book that y'all see on the screen right now, has the Egyptian hieroglyphic writing system been deciphered? We took time out to address that. That was a claim, that was made by Walter Williams years ago, but it was rehashed by Sarah Seti and Young Pharaoh. And so we had to take the time out to address it. We didn't address Seti and Pharaoh, though. We addressed Walter Williams, the original claim owner of those claims. And we did it point by point. We completely refuted it. That's why you don't really hear about that. And if anybody you do hear people talking about, just point them to this book and challenge them to refute this book. All right, that's it. So it could be done. So a lot of things could be done. It's just that we got to take time out to do it. And so, we need a pseudo war chest. We need to, create a donation box or something. Pass the plate around, act like church. Pass the collection plate around or something.
Yeah, I was trying to. So JD, man, started to get repetitive. A lot of this stuff, like even with the circumcision, you present the information over and over, and you, for some reason, new people coming into the conscious community or new people learning information tend to gravitate over to that left side of the metaphysical chart or what have you, and then you got to go back and repeat the same stuff you did 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I know you guys are talking about pseudos, but see, I have interactions with people who are like mentally ill sometimes, and I'm just wondering, because I guess everything is put under the umbrella of pseudo, but there's a lot of some of these people actually have mental illness. Like, it could be schizophrenia, like people who hear voices, people who talk to people, so there's, I mean, it sounds funny. I'm not trying to be funny, but I mean, like, because you turn on your YouTube, somebody says that everybody can get a YouTube channel. Anybody can channel so and so, dead droppers, figures, they can channel fairies, they can channel Santa, all that kind of stuff, and we don't even think about it. Like, these people actually have YouTube channels, and it's free, and people just have access to just be who they are and spread that mental illness. And we don't even scrutinize, like, wait a minute. Okay, so who's this person? Are you okay? Are you saying, do you have some mental illness problems? What is this? We don't know. So, and then, you're like, oh, that person is crazy or this is pseudo. But literally, to me, I start to think that a lot of people actually have mental illnesses, out here, and they get channels and they get access to teach.
Yeah, and that's the platforms they offer. They offer, the medium where this can be spread, and because we're the internet, we have social media, it just spreads very quickly and to a lot of people. So that's the dangers of it. So that's why I say the internet is like a curse and a blessing, because we can get quality good information, but at the same time we can get a whole bunch of misinformation, whether it's malicious or not, or intentional or not. It's there. So yeah, but so I'm just reading the chat. So it says, yes, agree. Yeah, so I'm saying we need a pseudo war chest. I don't know. I'm trying. Maybe I could set something up, and that's why we do these things. We're gonna be more consistent with these Friday discussions or presentations or whatever the case is. But and hopefully people will be interested and hanging, watching, participating, because it's not about lecturing. It's not about dictating and stuff all the time. We all are in this together. There's a lot to learn together. No one person knows everything and all this other good stuff. There's a way that we could discern information, whether it's fact or fiction, live or Memorex. And so we apply those methods and tools to that end. And we can do this together. There's people, there's those of us who may specialize in an area, who may dedicate time and focus in certain areas over other areas. So we should learn to lean on each other and be honest with each other in our strengths and weaknesses. So if you're strong in something that I'm weak in, then I should be able to lean on you for that, and vice versa. So we shouldn't be competing with one another, challenging one another, being adversarial to one another, which is what these platforms encourage and are set up for. They're set up for people to argue and fuss against each other, and it's turned into entertainment. It's a way of making a living, making money. Can't be mad at people making money and making a living. But when it comes in the long run as a detriment to our progress, then that's an issue. And we can't have it that way. We got to switch things up. And so whoever this person is, Billy Carson, I like I said, I'm not familiar with him, so I can't speak on him. And I won't until I look into it if I do. But man, you need time to deal with that. You need time to deal with stuff like that. All right. So, but like I said this already. The Netcher are, they're not sentient human beings. They're not flesh and blood human beings. They're not aliens that came from another planet, landed on Earth, gave birth to some folks or whatever the case is. And then left and supposed to come back, come back later. Like people say the same thing with the Anunnaki of the Akkadian text and the Sumerian text, or the Netcher of Egypt. Some people even try to equate the Netcher with the Akkadian characters, the Sumerian characters. They'll say Enki is Jehudi and Anu is Ra and his son and all this and that. Like, no. So no. And be careful with these laws of Jehudi or principles of Jehudi and Hermeticism and all that kind of stuff. You can gain some things out of there, some beneficial things out of there, but don't see people twisted. People lure people in by trying to make it into something it's not. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Kemetic yoga. Kemetic yoga is as Kemetic as a ham sandwich. But that doesn't mean it's not beneficial. Yoga is very, very beneficial. The philosophy, the practice is very beneficial. The problem is when people want to connect that with Egypt in a wrong way, and they do it in a wrong way. They want to pretend and say the Egyptians performed yoga and did those positions as if they really did those positions. That's not to speak to the efficacy of the positions and the breathing and all that other kind of stuff. Those are good and they're beneficial, and people get a lot out of that. But when you take that and say the Egyptians did it, now you have a problem. Now you have a problem, and I addressed that. So people do that with these different principles, the 7 Hermetic principles. You got books out there, people writing books, the self-mastery books, where they try to use the emerald tablets or the hermeticism and all these other kind of things, tying it to Egypt, and they'll put a nice pyramid on the cover and an ibis bird saying it's, it's tied into Tahuti or Hermes Trismegistus, and whatever the case is. Like, nah. And this is why we teach language. By the way, before we go, Sabo University, I don't know what happened earlier, but Sabo University is working. I just pulled it up. So can somebody do me a favor in the chat? Pull up saberuniversity.com and you let me know if it's coming up for you. But it's coming up for me now. All right. So I want to make sure that that's the case all the way across the board. All right. So any last things, because I can't really speak on Billy Carson. Now Gano Grills, I've seen some videos on Sonetta channel with the brother Gano Grills speaking, and it's purely entertainment. Anybody taking that stuff serious, I would have to question their mental state. Because he talks about some people having wings and stuff. There's a video I saw where he was talking to one of the twins, Blue Pill or Red Pill. And he was talking about how Red Pill had wings or he was this other being and stuff like that. Like, come on. We don't need that in 2019, 2020. That's setting us back. No. Can't do that. Oh, he said it's not pulling up?
Oh, no, it's working fine.
Okay, so Sean, refresh your screen or something, because you said it's not pulling up yet. Okay, Sean. By the way, Sean works for Comcast, and his internet's not working, so that's that's terrible. Let me stop.
Shots fired.
I ain't no Comcast internet.
Okay, there you go. That's the excuse.
My cell phone.
Okay, now I'm just playing. Now Comcast, I got Comcast, so I can't speak against Comcast. Xfinity. But anyway, so hopefully people had a little takeaway from something we discussed tonight. Don't want to extend this too much longer at all. So appreciate those. Let me think of anything else that you all need to know. Listen, saberuniversity.com is working. So if you're interested in the class, it's not too late. You could join this particular beginner's class. I will be performing. It says this site can't be reached still. Listen.
No, they probably need to please questions or something like that.
All right, this is where demonstration beats conversation.
Uh-oh.
All right, so I'm going to pull it up live on my screen so that everybody can see me do it.
Oh, I think it's the PC.
Oh, right. It's the PC. That's right. PCs. Yeah, you got to get a Mac somewhere, T, but you got to get a Mac. Nah, it'll pull up for anybody. But all right, so listen, here's my browser. I'm gonna pull it up while everybody can see it so that everybody can see it working. And please double check for me. Type in Saba University, hit it, and voila, there you go. All right, so it's there. So if it's not coming up for you, I need to know. So somewhere Tiba, I'm not sure what the issue is, but there was an issue though. It didn't come up earlier though. So I do know that. Oh, he said okay on this other browser. All right, so I don't have anything else. Anybody got any closing remarks? Now I'm going off the air on our YouTube channel live, but if you want to join an after party discussion and come into the chat, I'm gonna post the link one more time. We're just gonna end the live portion, and we'll probably talk another half an hour as a little after party discussion if anything comes up. So that's how we normally do it. And so if you want to come on in, and so but until then, I'm gonna say Shem and Hotep. Does anybody have any closing remarks for anybody? Yes, no, maybe so. All right, so I'm gonna say Shem and Hotep, which is is a farewell greeting, which is to leave satisfied or leave in peace. So I'm gonna say Shem and Hotep, and I'll see y'all definitely next Friday. But in between there, we'll go live. If topics come up or people have something to talk about, we may do a couple of presentations and things like that. All right, but remember, you can. It's not too late to sign up for the beginners class, and this is something that we push. If more people took time to learn the language, at least the basics at a beginner's level, a lot of this pseudo stuff that's being passed off as something that it's not, it would start to eliminate some of that stuff. People won't be open and gullible to believe a lot of these different things. All right, so this is one of the benefits of learning the language. In the long run, we'll cut down on some of that stuff. All right. So anyway, I'm gonna say Shem and Hotep, and I'll see y'all next time.